Hi everyone, hi and welcome back to Professional Beauty Group's Upskills series. I'm Eve from Professional Beauty Group and our live session today is all about how to set and achieve realistic targets for 2021. Obviously a bit of a different year this year and tough to kind of think about targets and setting something that's achievable. So should be an interesting session. It's the second in our three-part business skills series with Valerie Delforge, who is a business coach for the beauty, spa and hair markets and has previously run operations for several large salon and spa groups. So hi again, Valerie. Hi.
Hello, Eve. Thank you again for having me. It's such a pleasure to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is target setting and budget and everything else. So looking forward to this session and all your questions at the end. I will monitor how long I talk. So it's, as usual, I talk a lot and then we can have a lot of questions afterwards.
So yes, if you do have questions for Valerie as we go along, then type them in to, if you're watching here in the webinar platform, type them in the chat box or the Q&A. And if you're watching on Facebook, then just type them in the comments section. And if you type them as we go along, then we'll have them ready and we will get to them soon. So yeah, I'm going to let you start, Valerie. I will turn off my camera and microphone so that you can share your screen and I will come back in at the end.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I hope everybody is okay in this very cold but sunny weather here in London. So it's actually a little bit better for everybody. So we're going to talk about how to set realistic targets and how to achieve them. So this is all about you and your business and really making sure that you can achieve targets that are relevant to you. So for those who don't know me, I'm Valerie Delforge. I have been a business consultant for 7 years now, and I work on an international level. I've worked with very big companies such as Clarins, L'Occitane, Steiner. So I guess for me, it's very, very important to understand that I'm really focused on budget and P&L. So last week, we have discussed the 5 mistakes that lose salon money. So it's still on live, it's still on Facebook recording. So you can have a little catch up with that. Today is all about the targets. And next week will be about retail, which is also one of my favorite subjects. So what I do need to say to you before we start, and according to what I have achieved in my career, is that I am not an accountant, but I have worked with many financial departments and definitely working with the P&Ls, the budgets, the forecasting. Every time I wanted to invest in either a staff member or a machine, I needed to create a business case and a business study as to why we would need it, how much it would bring into the business, or the ROI, etc., the return on investment, and making sure that everything was focused on the budget. So I know how to read the figures. I know how to read and what is important within your business to be able to grow your business. So to me, business audits allow me, and this is what I do with my clients, I do business audits because it allows me to really understand what's happening in your business and set very much targets and KPIs according to your performance. So what I'm going to go through today, and we were discussing this with Eve when we set up what we want to discuss with you, is that setting up targets is actually a little bit difficult without understanding your budget and understanding your performance. However, I'm going to go through some key elements that I look for when I create the budget, when I look at the audit, and when I create your targets. So it's a thought process and giving you some strong ideas of how to set your targets for 2021. But as far as I'm concerned, and I say that again and again and again, to me, we are very emotional in the industry. We deal with emotions constantly. Oh, I like this brand, I'm going to buy this. Oh, this machine is going to make me a lot of money. We should be very much looking at your budget, looking at your forecast, looking at your return on investment. So every decisions that you make should be a financial decision, because it becomes a lot more strategic within your business rather than emotional within your business. And I find the emotion turns around the stock when we're overspending on stock, when we overspending perhaps on an extra staff member, but actually it wasn't time to have an extra staff member. So it's very, very important to analyze and really structure your budget so it works for you. So what does it mean when we start looking at targets? We should be looking at your budget, and your budget is all of the expenditure that you have and forecasting what you're having on a month-to-month basis in terms of costs and in terms of revenue, what comes in through your till. We should look at a forecast. Can we forecast how much we're going to make for the year? Can we forecast how much we're going to want to make for 2022, for example? And for me, when I've got my members, once I do the business audit, etc., I look at analyzing the money that comes into your business. Where is it coming from? What is popular? Because that is linked to your marketing strategy. That is linked to the performance of the staff. So we really analyze the figures that are coming in, but we also analyze the money that you're spending, your expenditure. Perhaps you've had to spend a little bit on maintenance, perhaps you spent on an extra brand, etc. So the analysis of your monthly figures as well as your cost allow you to understand where the business is. But it also allows you to be more strategic. That's what I really would want to put the emphasis on that strategy behind setting up your targets for 2021 in particular. Now, when we are looking at guidelines, the guidelines that I follow all the time when I do set the targets, obviously the targets are subject to your budget. We want to make sure that the budget is coherent. You don't want to create a target that's too high and unachievable, so it becomes really unmotivating and very deflating. And you want to start looking at targets that are realistic on the staff performance perspective, which I will brush up on in a minute. But also for yourself as a business, there's no point setting up, I want to do 20, 30% over last year's figures when really we know it's not going to be achievable. I'd rather set a target that is small and slowly kind of growing within months by months. And in the end, you have a nice achievement rather than setting up a target that is, as I said, deflating and really not motivating for you or the team. The key to your business is to build your cash flow. You could have a very busy business. You could have a very busy salon, a very busy spa, a very busy clinic, but actually at the end, the cash flow is not focused on, and therefore you're struggling to pay your bills every month. So the target you have set becomes unachievable, and that's when the cash flow suffers. This is why it's important, as far as I'm concerned, to focus on the cash flow and focus on when you pay your bills and focus, for example, I'm a strong believer that we should be ordering small quantities weekly. And for example, I used to do my orders on a Monday. The money was coming on a Monday, and by the end of the week, I would be able to replenish whatever I have spent. So all these things allow you to build your cash flow, because the cash flow is everything. I'm sure you know that. And in particular, when we're in lockdown, we want to have a strong cash flow. So when I set up the target, what do I normally look for? What is it that I look for? And how do I set up the target? So I take last year's figures and I do an increase of 10% over last year's taking. So if in January you've taken £10,000, you increase 10% on top of that, and that gives you your target for the following January. As simple as that. Now, again, that depends on how much growth you achieved last year. So 10% for me is the minimum target that I would give year on year. But some businesses that are growing stronger, or they've employed an extra staff member, or perhaps you've included an extra treatments on your menu that you know is going to be very strong, then we look at 15, 20%. So that's why we analyze last year's figures, where the money is coming, what is happening this year, and we're forecasting that target. So 10% really for me is a minimum, because I'm allowing an extra 5% of increase of costs Why? Because the suppliers will have done an increase year on year as well. They do that themselves. So we're going to allow a 5% increase on costs. Perhaps you can reduce some costs, which allows you to have a little budget to perhaps take on a receptionist. And it allows you to really be really strong on reducing your costs or keeping them low, but still growing because you've invested on something that's going to grow you, but have a target that is achievable, because we can do 10% over last year. We should be able to. Now, what's important is also to follow what I call the KPIs, and I'm sure some of you are aware of the KPIs, your key performance indicators. And as a business, I look at least 50% room or station, if you're a hairdresser, occupancy. So if I've got a hair chair, 50% of that time in that hair chair, so let's say I'm open 10 hours, it should be busy for 5 hours. Now, the difficulty about the room occupancy is that, or the station occupancy, is that not many softwares, if any, I'm yet to find one, that will analyze that occupancy. So we've got to kind of keep an eye on that on a monthly basis, because let's say I was doing this exercise with a hairdresser actually, and she had 13 hair chairs. And when we looked at it, when we looked at the numbers, only those hair chairs were busy for 20% of the time when we did an average. So there was too many hair chairs. So if we cut that in half, we only have 7 or 6 hair chairs. The hair chairs become much busier, much more effective, and we can use that space for something else. So we created a consultation for color, we created a little nail bar. So everything is monitored from what you're creating on a room or the occupancy you have on a room or station basis. I look at 20% retail rate, and that's why we're going to talk retail next time. As a business, if I achieve 20% of the overall taking being on retail, I've got a nice increase of revenue coming in. So do tune in next time, because I will give you some pointers of what to look for when it comes to retail. I believe that having 20% of new customers within your business is a healthy number, because it allows you to grow as a business. So if you don't have 20%, you have less than that in terms of new clients coming into your business, it means that actually you probably are not doing enough to keep them loyal into the business. But if you have more than 20% clients coming in, 30, 40, 50% new clients coming into your business, what are you doing in order to keep them loyal to the business? And the other thing I look at is the average sale. So, average spend per client, for example. I want to see an increase, because that's going to generate more money into my business. And the other thing I look at is the average unit sell. Sorry, and the average unit sell for me is all about how much on an average do I sell per client in terms of unit? How many products do I sell per client? And this, we will brush up on that next time. It's a really good target for your team, because sometimes when we tell them we want 20% retail rate, percentage doesn't mean anything. But if we tell them, actually, you sell 1 product per client, I want you to focus on 2 products per client, it's a much better, much more visual element of the target. But as I said, we'll brush up on that, because that's a strong target setting for your team, in particular if they're not that strong at selling. So the average unit sell is absolutely amazing to look at. The staff target, what I look at, and the KPIs to follow, well, obviously, there is a say that we want to do on an average in an industry 3.5 times their salary. So if you take their monthly salary, you multiply by 3.5 times, a good service provider will generate 3.5 times their salary, and that's a profitable staff member. However, we need to take in consideration, and this is why I invite you to really analyze your business, because someone who's doing nails, for example, the pound per minute, what she can generate will be far less than someone who's doing facials, because the facials are more expensive. It's the same for colors. If you do colors, you're going to generate more money than someone who's purely doing haircuts. So we do need to analyze it per staff member according to what they are delivering within your business. I want my staff member to be at least 70% occupied, because it allows me to grow. It allows me to be able to have a good productivity for that staff member. I do look at a minimum of 40% rebooking rate. That rebooking rate is so crucial. And the big question has been at the moment when I've been talking to my members, it's a little bit difficult to kind of look at last year, because last year we were open, not open, etc. And therefore some clients were a little bit worried about booking again. So the rebooking rate could have gone down a little bit. But if we don't focus on the rebooking rate, if we don't make it a strong KPI to follow, I find that when we do mystery shop, for example, the staff members assuming that the client, or the reception assuming that the client doesn't want to come in or doesn't want to rebook or is going to book online. So we don't ask anymore. But we should be asking to every client, every single client. It's the law of averages. The more I ask, the more I will get. If you do it every now and then, you just have very little results. And then I look at the average sale. For me, the average sale needs to increase on a quarterly basis. And also I look at the percentage of retail. So it's all linked. The more they sell retail, the more the average sale is going to increase. You know, it's all about the KPIs. Now, you can set 1 or 2 KPIs per team member. Sometimes if you do too many, it's too confusing. And that's why I love working on a quarterly basis. And basically, to me, when I have got clients that are panicking, for example, let's say in January when they open, if we were open, January, February, March, we look at the first quarter. Oh, my God, it's quiet in January, it's quiet. But hold on, if you work on quarter, you've got your quarterly target, you can pick that up in February, or you can pick that up week on week. So the quarterly achievement, whether it's for your business or for your staff member, is a really good way of feeling that you are not having weeks that are terrible and you can't catch up on that. It actually will balance itself out for the quarter. Now, if you're still not achieving on the 3rd month, then we need to do something. Maybe it's your marketing, maybe it's something that is not working within the marketing element. I do believe, and I said it last time and I'm saying it again, that we cannot afford to have underperformance within our business. I believe that when we are opening again, we've got to look at the performance on either the revenue that they're generating or the KPIs of our staff member, but we need to be strong as a business. We cannot afford to have underperformers. Even if we love them and they're lovely, what can we do to really push them in the right direction? And if they're still not achieving, what can we do afterwards to manage that underperformance? Now, a lot of people think I'm a little bit harsh when I talk about that. But I give them enough time. You know, for me, I give them the quarter target, and if they achieved it, or if they have seen an increase and the attitude is right, then to me, that's great. We can work with that. But if someone's attitude is like, I don't really care, I'm coming in to do my job and the figures are not going up, to me, that's a performance management matter. And we've got to be a lot stronger in our leadership this year, because as a business, we can't afford to have that kind of attitude. And it's all about meetings. And something that happened last year is that we were so kind of focused on bringing in the money that we've not really focused our team on the leadership aspect, on the money side of things, because we just wanted to open. We've got to put, so the minute you know the opening date, your meetings in your diary. You should even start doing them on Zoom right now to keep that motivation, to keep that focus for your team, and to know, for them to know that you are starting 2021 with the monitoring of their figures. It's so important, and that will always happen, only happen rather, if you are monitoring and you're following up. It's all well and good to set up targets, but if there's no follow-ups, you may as well not bother. So we've got to make sure there are individual meetings and team meetings to be able to really ramp up that kind of energy around achieving the figures. Now, when we look at 2020 versus 2021, what happened last year to what's happened this year, it's going to be difficult to look at the figures because last year was just hectic and it was very reactive. Like I just said, we opened the door and it was like whole hand on desk, on deck. We don't really care how many, what's going on with the performance of the team because it's all about bringing in the clients and making the money in between. And that's good, that's fine. And actually, with my clients, I didn't really bother with the team performance last year because we were all about get the clients in, get to focus, etc. Still did the meeting, however, but we were very, very active in 2020. So when it comes to 2021, I want you to be a lot more strategic in the way you're focusing your team, in the way you're dealing with your business. And that is going to come with procedures. We should have all the procedures in place. We were just discussing with one of my clients when, we had an issue where someone had to close earlier because someone contracted the virus. And therefore it was a big hoo-ha in the whole performance of the business, and it was heartbreaking, but the procedures were not followed. So again, the procedures to me are so strong because they will allow you to be very clear in your leadership. That's why I'm so operational. And we need to look at the staff performance. I think we got away with it last year, or they got away with it last year because it was far more, focused on bringing in the clients. Now you know what it's like when you're opening in between lockdown. You can be busy. You can focus on certain things. So the staff performance is absolutely crucial to look at. So if I look at last year's figures, when I create the budget with my clients and I look at last year's figures and I want to put a 10% increase, well, to be honest, it's not really going to work, is it? Because there was some months where it was we were open halfway through. There were some months we couldn't do all the treatments we wanted to do. There were some months where perhaps you had some people off sick or some part furlough. So last year is a little bit kind of a year where we can't judge on. We can't really set targets over. So what I do look for is I look at your monthly costs. If I know the monthly cost, how much it is on a monthly basis that I have in terms of cost, I increase it by 10%. And every month I increase it by 10. Maybe the following month I increase it by 15%. But it's that analyze of your monthly figures and of your monthly cost that is going to make a huge difference to your target. Because if you know you can cover your costs and have a little bit more to build that cash flow, then you are a working business. Now, if you're doing really well, if you really are smashing those figures, which we have seen in between lockdown, I've had quite a few clients who basically in between the lockdowns have done figures they've never seen before. That means we take that figures of last month and we increase it by 10%. But again, the small steps allow you to make a giant step in the end. Stop focusing on those big targets. That's what we want to achieve because we lost that much. That's going to be very, very demotivating and quite deflating. But if we know the cost, we increase it by 10%, and every month we keep increasing, then you are really feeling that you are working on your cash flow. You're able to work on what needs to be worked on. I hope I'm making sense. It's so important to consider a few things. So number one, we're going to look at, your staff training. And we've been very busy with staff training because we're realizing, in particular with my members, that actually the staff needs to be engaged. So what should we be training them on? What is important when it comes to the training? We should look at upselling. Upselling training is the key at reception. For example, if you've got a gap after a manicure, what could we entice the client to have? Perhaps she has a normal manicure, we're going to get her to have a luxury manicure. Perhaps she's coming for a haircut, we're going to entice her to have an amazing treatment for 15 minutes extra to make sure that we upsell. So upselling is usually the same time actually, but a higher price point. So it goes back to what are you offering on your menu in terms of add-on, what can be possible. Then we look at the cross-selling. So someone comes in for a facial, we're going to upsell her a manicure because the manicurist is quiet afterwards. Someone's coming in for a haircut, but when we do the consultation, we have time to do the color as well with another staff member. Obviously, I'm going to look at the retail, because if they're performing on the service and on top of that, they're performing on retail with the 20% that I'm looking at, that is going to generate a nice amount of revenue. Now, with the retail, however, it's no point expecting somebody who's hardly retailing, perhaps 1 or 2% of a month, on retail to suddenly get to 20%. We just want to give us a target that is realistic every month. And that's why I look at the number of products. Look, every week you're selling 1 product a week. I want you to start selling 2 products a week. So it's much more visual. It's much more realistic. And we'll go through a lot more kind of ideas next week. Then we're going to look at the rebooking. It's all about the customer loyalty. It's all about making sure that that customer wants to come back to you and not somewhere else. We have seen an increase of new clients within the business in between the lockdowns. So what are we doing with those new clients? We want to hook them in with whatever loyalty program you have and try and rebook and ask every single time. So what you do need to consider, and I'm a huge fan of the individual development plan, it becomes an individual target per staff member. If someone is very strong on retail, great. We know she's strong on retail, but maybe she's struggling on rebooking. I'm going to focus on her on rebooking. If someone is kind of not strong on rebooking and not strong on retail and not strong on X, Y, and Z, we're going to have to focus her on 2 KPIs that you feel are relevant to her. Don't go too many or it's confusing and they end up doing none of it. And I like, as I said, to give them that quarterly target. So I give them time to grow. I give them time to achieve that. The KPIs for me is quite important to change them every quarter so they don't get bored and it doesn't come, the same every time. So for example, that person, I've seen an increase on the retail and I've seen an increase on rebooking. Well done. Let's carry that on. And this month, I'm going to look at your average sale. Let's really focus on your average sale. And I'm going to look at what you're doing in terms of upselling. So there's always something you can focus them on that differs and that gives a bit of energy behind the target. To me, I love reviews. I think they're the #1 tool in your business. So let's get the team focused on reviews perhaps and getting them reviews. Perhaps you're focusing the reception team on reviews because reviews will, as we know, encourage new clients, encourage people to look at your business and want to come there. And again, I'm going to say it again, performance management for the underperformance, because otherwise you are allowing somebody that, might be lovely with the clients, but is not performing in terms of numbers. Now, remember, when I set my targets, it is quarterly. I give them time to grow. I support them with training. I'm really there for them. I'm doing the meetings with them. I might have an outside person to support them. After a while, if you don't see that growth, then there's an issue. So that performance management, it's so important. Let's celebrate the successes. When we are open and we're seeing all sorts of things happening, all sorts of growth, even if it's a little growth, but it's happening, let's celebrate it. Let's be happy with that amazing success, because otherwise you will find that we're constantly focusing on what isn't happening and your mindset becomes very set into like, oh, but we should be doing more. Oh, but we should be accessing that. But actually, do you know what? We've done £500 more than last month. We've done more rebooking this month. Let's celebrate that. Either whether it's an incentive, whether it's a little champagne for everybody, whatever you want, celebrate and shout about the success is so, so important. I feel sometimes when we are a little bit stressed or when there are things happening, we don't look at that enough. And to me, that's motivating. So we should be doing that. So basically, I want you to reopen with business targets. What do you want to focus on as a business? How are you going to grow? I want you to reopen with individual targets that are relevant per staff member, so they feel encouraged, they feel motivated, and they feel really that it is achievable, that it is that they can achieve that target and they feel good about it. And a cost reduction strategy. So we have got a strategy on how to make sure we're not overspending whilst we're trying to build that cash flow. To me, that's very, very, very important focus. So I'm open to questions right now. I'm going to be doing a group coaching on budget. It's only going to be £45 per person. We're going to delve down into your budget, what you look for, how to build your budget strategy. We just need your interest. And if you want and you're interested in that, just email us at the support@thedelforgegroup.co.uk or send me a little message on Facebook, Instagram. You can find us and we will register and tell you when this is happening. Because if we open with a strong budget and we know what to look for, you will find that your target setting will be so much easier to set for the year. So I think I've done very, very well in terms of timing, Eve. I'm getting better by the minute.
Fabulous, thank you, Valerie. That was great, and we've had lots of comments. That's been really useful. So yeah, everyone, if you do have questions, now's the time to ask them. We've had a couple pop through, but there's plenty of time to ask a few more questions. So if you're watching in the webinar platform, just type them into the chat, and if you're watching on Facebook, just pop them in the comments, and we will get to them. But yeah, we have had some through already. We had one that was about creating targets based on figures, which was, would it work to base targets on 2019 figures, seeing as 2020 was so unusual?
It does very much work. And some of my members we've set up against 2019 figures. But again, it depends on the growth of 2019. Maybe you had more staff members than you have now. Maybe you have less staff members that you have now. So you kind of need to compare the year, otherwise you're not going to have a realistic target. But if it's the same team, and if you feel that you can achieve that target and it's achievable, absolutely, there's members that we've just took 2019 figures, and that's what we're working from. 100%. It's a good benchmark, actually, because you know you can achieve, you've achieved it already. But do compare,
I suppose, because and again, if you're pushed for time, and it's ideal to do it month by month, but as a very rough basis to start with 2019 and go from there.
100%, yeah, definitely.
Excellent, thank you. We've had a question from Laura who says, the challenge we have is that our cash flow and reserves have massively depleted due to COVID, plus many of us now have bounce back loans and VAT deferrals. Any tips for how we can build these back up? So yeah, rebuilding cash flow, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Laura, in the best of time, even on the non-COVID situation, cash flow is always a headache, isn't it? The margins are very small in the industry, and therefore in particular in beauty industry as well. So therefore we have got to work on it. And that's why I like to work on my cost on a monthly basis. What is coming out next month? What is coming out in the next 2 months? I work on quarters. So for example, in December, we looked at the cost for January, February, March. And what is coming out? I need to pay the VAT then, I need to pay the rent there, or I pay the rent quarterly. So we know exactly how much money is coming out per month. That's so important. Now, if you take all of this into consideration, the bounce back loan that is going to start kicking off at one point this year, the VAT deferral, etc. If you take all of this into consideration, you should know what's coming out on a monthly basis. So what can you do in order to achieve that figure that you have? So let's say you have £15,000 worth of costs in January or in April. How many staff members have I got? Can they achieve that figures? So my costs are covered. And if they can't, what can I do in order to generate? And that's why we're going to talk about retail next time, because I think retail is a big part, and in particular online retail at the moment for sure has saved a lot of people because there's money coming in regardless.
Absolutely.
I hope that answered your question, Laura. But cash flow is always a nightmare, and it's always, I mean, I shouldn't say a nightmare, but it's always a challenge, I would say. And understanding your costs on a monthly basis will be the only way. And perhaps, have you lost clients from year on year? And what are you doing in terms of marketing? And this is why I talk about the Delforge 5, because to me, they're all linked, which is what is reception doing, to increase the upselling and cross-selling, the the budget, obviously, that we analyze. We look at the leadership of the team with the staff members. We look at the retail, and definitely looking at the marketing side of things.
Definitely, and Laura has just responded it did, thank you, so it did answer her question, thank you. We've had another question from Rachel, who's just said, can you revisit the idea of increasing the monthly costs by 10% and why we should do this? I'm not sure I understand.
Yes, so Rachel, basically, when we look at your monthly costs, you know, let's say you're going to pay, some people pay their rent quarterly. So I know, for example, in March, I'm going to have more costs because I've got my rent to pay. So I take the overall cost of the months that I have and I increase it by 10%. So let's say I add 10% of that, let's say £15,000, I add 10% on that, that becomes my target. And of course, let's say on April, you don't have your rent to pay. So let's say it goes down to 13%, 13,000, and therefore you increase that by 10%. So at least you're covering your cost and you give yourself an increase. Does that make sense? But this is valid for salons, I feel, that are struggling with cash flow, that are struggling with bringing in the clients and the money in between. So again, this is why when we discuss this subject, I was thinking, you know, with you, I was saying, wow, it's a tough one because it's very individual to the salon. But it's just to give you a benchmark that if you are struggling, the cost element gives you a real focus as a target.
Excellent. Thank you. That really explains it well. We've had a question from Richard. He says, is it a good idea to share the financials of the business with team members? So salon annual turnover, profit, breakdown of costs, etc.
Yes, I believe it is, but equally, I don't want it to be demotivating and deflating. I did an exercise once where the team was just, you know, not understanding why we're not getting more commission and being a little bit kind of off with the owner. So we did this exercise where we put a big spreadsheet and we said, okay, what do you think these are cost? So we didn't give them the financial and the P&L. I don't think that's necessarily what you want to do. I think making them aware of the cost, I think is a good idea. Okay, so how much have you got? Okay, we've got the water to pay, we've got this to pay, we've got the electricity, we've got this. So it gets them an idea that actually every £100 I've got 80 quid going out on costs. That's quite a nice idea to get them to think about it. But I definitely, personally, I like to share what we're achieving, because yes, there is a risk. A lot of salon owners are a bit, yeah, but if I share how much we make, they're going to think, you know, they're going to open their own salon. Well, personally, I think good luck to them, you know, if they're going to do that, because, you know, it's a tough one. So you're always going to have someone who's going to have the ultimate motive, but if they realize how costly it is, maybe that will change their mind. So personally, I'm not against it, not necessarily to hand out the P&L and hand out your end of year. I don't think that's relevant, but definitely making them conscious of every £100, 80 quid, let's say, is going out on cost. So they need to be conscious of that. I think that's quite good.
Absolutely. A question from Rachel, a different Rachel, who's asked, in part one, you mentioned client loyalty and welcome packs. What do you do for your VIP clients or regular loyal clients? We also need to make this work within our budgets.
For sure. I mean, the VIP clients, you need to decide how many you want. Is it 50 of them? Is it 20 of them? Is it 10 of them? Because it's also relevant to how much money they spend into your salon. Now, you don't want them to spend less money, but perhaps you can encourage them with specific events for them. And it's purely for those VIP events, and there's no one else has access to these events, and they get a better kind of gift for his purchase. Perhaps you can entice them with introducing a friend, and they receive a complimentary manicure on their next treatment. So I don't want it to be that it actually damages the money they're bringing into the salon. If any case, it needs to increase the value of what they're bringing into for them. It increases their value. Does that make sense? So again, it's a question of how much do they spend. If you have 20 clients that spend over a certain amount, they become your VIP. They could potentially look at a membership if you wanted to. I don't necessarily agree that membership in beauty in particular is always beneficial, and it has to be a budget exercise. It has to be an understanding of what comes out every month and what comes in every month to make it worth it.
Great.
Answered.
think so, thank you. There's another question from, I'm not sure who, it says anonymous attendee, but they've asked, are the targets 3/4 times wages excluding VAT?
Do you know what? There's always that.
3 to 4 times wages excluding. So 3/4, of course, because you mentioned 3 to 4 times.
Yeah, depending on whether. Look, when we do the budget, if you prefer working without VAT, we work everything without VAT. The key is if you're going to work without VAT, everything needs to be without VAT. You can't have one bit with a VAT, one other bit without VAT. It makes no sense. Personally, I like to include the VAT on everything because it's just giving me a realistic kind of a figure and number, and I can take that VAT off at one point. So personally, it has to be with VAT, really. It should be. It's easier.
And we've got another question from Max watching over on Facebook, I think on the HJ Hairdresser Journal page. He's asked, thank you for a great helpful video. Why do you think retail is so important? The profit after cost and VAT and commission is so little that I feel it's not worth the hassle.
Oh, yes. my type of client. We're going to change that mindset. To me, retail is very important because you are creating a loyalty of your client into your business with the brands that you're using. You're becoming also a salon that is an expert that using expert products. And yes, you're going to argue they might be available this and that and everywhere, but people buy the product as much as they buy you and that expertise that you give them. So tune in next week, and I hope I'm going to change your mind on retail. Because to me, retail is everything. You know, when you look, I've got a lot of friends in Estee Lauder, Liesl, etc. And when you talk to them, or you know, all the hairdressers as well, all the hair products, they've never been so busy. Makeup has taken a bit of a hit, but actually skincare and hair is important, and with all these Zoom calls. So, you know, where are those clients spending those money? Why shouldn't it be with you? And yes, you might make a small margin, but isn't that better than nothing? So it's a numbers game. The more you sell, the more money you're going to gain, isn't it? So it's a numbers game. So yeah, tune in next week.
Excellent. There's one more question just popped up from Tina. How do you work out the VAT/tax you need to allow?
So, I mean, I always take 20% out. So it's just easier. Just take 20% out. And I think that's easier. Put that aside and you've got your number. It's a benchmark, you know. And at the end of the day, the accountant, this is why I work a lot with accountants or financial departments, you know, they're going to have tricks and tips of doing things where they put cost in depreciation and they can allow you this allowance and everything else. But if you put aside that 20% or take off that 20% out of the number, it gives you a good benchmark. Can I go back to, sorry, I hope I answered, Tina, the question. Can I go back to the, just thinking about it, the new clients welcome pack and your existing clients. Now, it is a valid question, and thinking about it, actually, you know, some of my clients, some of my members said, oh, I'm a bit worried if I do a new welcome pack, you know, a welcome pack for my clients, everyone's going to be like, what about me? And I get that. So sometimes they do a little goodie bag for every appointments that the client have. It doesn't have to be just a new client, it can be for everybody. But the new client welcome pack works really well if you have highlighted what you are offering for loyalty program. And for me, the loyalty program, as I said before, is probably one of the biggest impact in 2021. We want to keep those clients to us. We don't want them to give them the opportunity to go somewhere else.
Great, thank you. Makes sense. Another question that's just come through is, how do you work out commission for employees? i.e., if your employee has met all their targets, then how do you incentivize them? I'm not sure whether to do commission or a bonus.
Now, commission is another nightmare, right? I have many members, and actually every single one have a different commission structure. Commission structure is also relevant to the business, to your budget and what you want to do. I think commission is better than a bonus. A bonus is relevant to me at reception level. So if you achieve the overall retail target, they get a bonus. If you achieve a reduction of white space, you get a bonus, etc. So that's quite a good bonus. But otherwise, for the staff member, it should be commission, really. But it's a little bit like with retail. I get a lot of clients telling me, I give 10%, you know, retail, 10% on every products that they sell on retail, and they don't sell. But 10% of what? £200, £300, £1,000? 10% means nothing. So the commission has to be really relevant to what they understand. And that's why I like to work on an individual development plan basis. So it becomes a lot more achievable. But there are many ways of creating the commission, many ways in terms of commission structure. There are some ways that are better than others. If you feel that it works, I feel that we don't touch something that is working. That's maybe we tweak it a little bit, or maybe we add incentives as well. So it could be this weekend, if you create 10 upsell, you all getting a little something, a voucher or whatever. So we can create incentives. But when it comes to actual commission, it's individualized, and if it works, don't break it. If you feel it's not working and everyone's getting £7.50 on their pay packet and it's not motivating, then there's something in the commission structure that is not relevant to your staff. So that's when it needs to be revisited according to your budget.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Valerie. I think we're coming up to the end of time, but we've got through, I think, most of the questions. Again, if you have any other questions, you can watch the Facebook video back on either of our Facebook pages, whichever channel you are watching on, and you can type any other questions there, and we will try to get them answered next time, I think, because Valerie will be back with us same time next week, Thursday at 12:30 p.m.
And please tune in, that's retail as well. So thank you so much. It's great to be talking to you today, and have a great week.
Thank you so much, Valerie, and thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.